Let's hope it's not burnt. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I am in the kitchen and I will be making one of the foods from the Husky and his white cat Shizun. Now this food, Shimei made it for Moran every time he felt sad, and Shizun once attempted to make it for Moran. Though I haven't finished the book and I don't really know the significance of this dish, but according to many ERHA fans out there, this dish is very, very important, and apparently it can make someone cry. So today, let's make it. Let's make 红油抄手, or spicy wonton, if you want to call it that. Let's get to it. So right now, I am making the hot chili oil that's going to go with the spicy wonton. So I just added some ground chilies, and then this is 5 spice, which I'm just going to add a tiny bit. The purpose of the sesame, white sesame, is to make it much more aromatic. Just a spoon there. We can start now. So right now I'm currently heating up the oil to make the hot chili oil. So I have to wait until this starts to smoke a bit, and then I put in the sesame, and then the hot chili oil, and then 1 spoon of vinegar, and I'll show you that later. Okay, so now it's smoking and I turn off the heat and I basically just let it sit here for maybe like a couple minutes until it like cools down a bit, because this thing is really hot right now. So I want to leave it there for maybe about 5 minutes. I think this should be good, because if it's too hot it might burn the sesame seeds. But you know what? Let's just go. So you put in the sesame seeds. Then you want to add in the hot chilies. And you can see that. Whoa, I can already smell the hot chili. It smells pretty good. Now you want to add a bit of dark vinegar, just 1 spoon. And then this thing will sort of explode a little bit. 1 spoon. This looks a bit burnt. Oh no, let's hope it's not burnt. I actually read somewhere that this type of pork is good for dumpling filling, but for this type of wonton filling, it's not that good. So we have to put it through this food processor to make it more fine. If you don't have this food processor, you can put it on a chopping board and start chopping it. But a food processor would be much easier. Let's go. I think that should be good. That should be good. Yeah, that's actually pretty good already. Alright. And just get everything off of this blade, because that meat is kind of like stuck on there. Make sure to wash your hands after you touch raw meat. So that is our ground meat. Let's get the other stuff ready. Green onion and some ginger. Green onion, you don't want this root, that goes in the garbage. And if you are a child watching this, please be careful and ask the parent to accompany you when using a knife. And that's it for our green onion. You can set that aside. And then for our ginger, you want to take a grater and grate it. Now all of this root stuff, it means that this ginger is like an old ginger, and it would be pretty good and used to make a ginger milk pudding, but that I can do that for another video if you guys really want it. But anyways, I got a bit of ginger here and that's good enough. Now it's time to make the meat filling. To this we're going to add some salt, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce. Just gonna eyeball that one. Okay, that's good. I don't have Sichuan peppercorn powder, so I'm just gonna skip that. And then we have white pepper. Time to add our ginger. Time for some sesame oil. And 1 egg white. So you just want the white, you don't want the yolk. You basically crack the egg open, right? Then you sort of like lift it, and you have to be very careful to let the egg white drop into it. And then you basically just like pass the egg yolk into the other shell, and then you pass it back, and then there you go. Then you want to mix this in a circular motion. You want to mix it in one direction. You don't want to mix it in 2 directions, because that way I think it like breaks the protein or like something to do with the pork structure. The texture won't be as good, basically. Basically, you want to mix it a lot, and then that way the meat, it will have a bite instead of being like extremely soft. Oh, basically like that. But now I'm gonna add some water. You don't want to add all the water all at once. You want to add it like a bit by bit. And then you gotta mix it in as well. This will help make like the meat, I think, juicier. Time for our second add of water. Then you want to mix this until it becomes sort of like thready, and then you feel like you can sort of like pull a string or like a thread with this. I'm so tired. But basically you want to get it to like where it's like this pale white sort of. Then you feel like when you like sort of pull on it, it has like this force that's like pulling it back, and you feel that it's kind of bouncy, and then that's when you know you're basically there. And now we want to add our green onion, and then you mix it in. Oh, that smells pretty good already. And there is our filling. Now we're ready to wrap this thing. So here I bought this wonton wrapper from the supermarket because making it from scratch is very tiring, and I just simply do not have the time for that. So I'm just gonna wrap this in here, and I will show you 2 ways that you can wrap this dumpling. So here we have our dumpling skin. They should be very, very thin. The first way require a bit less filling than the other one, but basically you want to fold this corner up to a little bit, then you fold it back up again. Then you want to sort of close this off right here, and then you put some water, you pinch it, then you pinch out the excess air from the sides, and then you want to fold the 2 corners down and until they sort of overlap. And you want to put some water here so that it sticks. And there you have it. That's the first way you can make this. The second way is a lot easier. You grab this, grab some filling, grab some water, and put it over the top corner. Then you fold it over and you make this triangle. You push out all the air, pinch, pinch, pinch. Just like the one before, you fold downwards until it forms like this shape. Remember to put some water, then you just stick it on, and voila, there you have it. That's the second way to fold this. Alright, so now I will be preparing the soup for this 红油抄手. So basically, whatever we added into the filling, we're basically going to add it again inside the soup, but a much less version. So first, there's salt. Now I didn't add this in the filling, but I'm adding a bit of sugar. Then we got the white pepper, a tiny bit of soy sauce, a tiny bit of oyster sauce, a tiny bit of chicken stock powder, or basically MSG if you want to call it that way, Uncle Roger approved. And one last thing, which is a tiny bit of black vinegar. This is Chinese vinegar, which is very similar to balsamic vinegar, so you can use that as a replacement if you want. And finally, we have our hot chili oil, which I sort of failed, but is better than nothing. So there we have it. That's our soup base, which we are going to add the stock too. And now let's get cooking. So here I have a pot of boiling water, and I made about like 36 chaoshous, and I'm going to cook 9 of them. 9's a lucky number in Chinese culture, you know? So the water is boiling here. I'm going to add the chaoshous. You want to make sure you stir it so it doesn't stick to the bottom. Just then, it was like almost sticking to the bottom. Oh, dang. So when this water boils, you want to grab a cup of cold water and then pour it back in here. And this is basically the stock that we are going to use for our soup base. And one more thing I'm going to add are vegetables. Typically, this would be used like really green vegetables, but since I don't really have green vegetables right now, I added some napa cabbage, which is still good, still pretty good. You just really don't want the wontons to stick to the bottom because that would be a disaster. I've had that happen before. It still tastes the same, but it's just that it doesn't look as good. But once this starts boiling again, I will add cold water and then wait for it to boil. And then once it boils, it's basically cooked already. So it's basically boiling now. So I'm gonna add my cold water in. And then once that boils, we can plate it. So the water is basically boiling again. They should be pretty much done. So now to our bowl of soup. I will add the water from our dumplings and basically just pour it in. Now if you have some like leftover lard or like leftover bacon fat, you can add that in here as well. It'll taste amazing. Of course, if you're using like frozen wontons, then it's best to follow the package. But here, it's already it's basically freshly made, so it's all right to cook it like for such a short time. So that's basically our chaoshou. Now let's give it a try. Alright, so today we made Hongyou chaoshou from the Husky and his white cat Shizun. Now just judging from the looks right now, I can tell you I definitely failed in making the chili oil because I didn't add chili powder, which would make the oil a red color. So here it's basically missing like the hint of red from the hot chili oil, but I'm pretty sure the taste is still there. So first, let's give our chaoshou a bite. It's hot. It's not that bad. Like, you definitely taste like the ginger first, and it's not that salty. So I think it would taste good with the hot chili soup. Actually, let's give the soup a go. The soup is actually pretty good tasting. It's a lot of levels of flavor. Like you taste the saltiness and the umami of the soy sauce. And then you also taste like this hint of spiciness from the hot chili oil. But I think one thing I definitely failed today was the hot chili oil. Because here I taste a tiny bit of bitterness, which means that the hot chili oil was a tiny bit burnt. But other than that, I would say I did a pretty good job today. Oh. This is so good. But I think also depending on the type of chili powder you use for the hot chili oil, the spice level can also vary. This one, the one that I use, isn't very spicy. So if you like something spicy, you can add a bit more chili powder as well. And that's another job of the chili powder, and that is to add a spiciness to it. I think one thing about the chaoshou skin, the one that I bought from the supermarket was a tad bit thick. And I think chaoshou should be a tiny bit thinner. So if you are buying your own wonton skins, try to find the thin ones. And if you're going to make it by hand, definitely roll it out as thin as you can. This would be a great food for autumn and winter because it's like such a warm bowl of like wontons and like hot soup. Ah, oh, so good, so good. You guys definitely have to try this if you have time, and if you can find the ingredients, definitely go for it. I think one thing that is really good about the soup is that little bit of vinegar that we added. It definitely sort of like adds a new flavor, adds a new layer to this whole dish. So good. Now, if you're going to make this at home, there are a few tips that I have to give you. One is the chili oil. If you're going to make the chili oil by hand, be sure to have chili powder and be sure to look out for it. If it sort of starts burning. Because once you add like those little tiny pieces of like chili flakes into the hot oil, they can burn really easily. So you have to be very careful about that. Another thing is the meat filling. When you're making the meat filling and you have to mix it a lot, definitely don't worry about overworking the meat, because the more you work it, the more bite this sort of meatball has. You don't really want to like just like bite into it like a meatball only to have it like sort of like scatter in your mouth. The texture wouldn't be right. So be sure to mix it a lot until you sort of like feel like the meat is like elastic, like it has resistance. There is one thing that I didn't add throughout this entire recipe, and that was peppercorn powder. I didn't have any of that at home, but I do have peppercorn. But I was kind of too lazy to make peppercorn powder. But if you were to make peppercorn powder, you would just roast it on a pan on low heat, and then until it's dry, and then you just crush it into powder. Now, one different thing about this version from the version of the book is that I'm sort of missing that hot chili oil with garlic in it. Because in the book, it says, no matter if it's the last life or this life, Moran's favorite food is Shimei's chaoshou. The skin was as thin as like a wisp of cloud, and the filling was tender like melting fat, and everyone was wrapped really full. It's just absolutely delicious, and the fragrance just like remained behind in your mouth. Especially the soup, which was a bone broth cooked until the soup was like milky white. So that's another thing that I'm kind of missing. And then on top, you have like these green onions, and then there's also some egg drop inside the soup, and then one big spoon of hot chili oil that was cooked along with grated garlic. So just from that, you can tell that I'm missing quite a bit of stuff in here. Like the bone broth, that's for one, and then the hot chili oil mixed with garlic, that's another one. But here is a pretty simplified version of Hongyou chaoshou from the Husky and his white cat Shizun. If you have the ingredients, I say definitely go for it. And the leftover chaoshou, you can store them in the freezer, and you can just take them out whenever you need to cook them. And yeah, that is all for today's video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you like my channel. Thank you for watching, and until next time, 我们下次见. I am going to finish this bowl of chaoshou.